Welcome to our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Today we're headed to St. Louis and the National Museum of Transportation. The National Museum of Transportation is a private 42-acre transportation museum in the Kirkwood suburb of St. Louis Museum. It was founded in 1944. The goal of the museum is to restore, preserve, and display a wide variety of vehicles spanning nearly 15 decades of American history. Included in this museum are cars, boats, aircraft, and a ton more. There's also locomotives and railroad equipment from all across the United States. This first part of our visit will focus on the automobile industry and the cars dating from as early back as 1901 all the way to the present day. This first section is just the lobby of the museum, and it highlights a number of important vehicles, including cars that we see here as this 1957 DeSoto, as well as carriages, old tram cars, and a few other types of transportation vehicles. In just a few minutes, we'll head in and take a look at the massive car collection that they have. This just gives you a highlight of what we will be seeing in this video. We'll now head into the main display area for the automobiles. This first vehicle that we're looking at is a 1901 car that was made right here in St. Louis. This original carriage automobile cost about $900 and was powered by a one-cylinder 7-horsepower engine. The St. Louis Motor Carriage Company was the first successful automobile business west of the Mississippi River.
Many other cities in the country had more miles of paved roads within its city limits by 1890.
This first wing of the building takes a look at some of the early cars in the history of the automobile industry. Most of these vehicles date back to the early 1900s up to about 1910, including cars such as this steamer car, as well as other cars that we'll see here that were made way back in the early part of the automobile industry.
From your house to your destination and back, you could be excited about that because that was not an everyday occurrence.
Many of St. Louis's early car makers were German immigrants who knew how to build a wagon and later learned how to build a carriage, first powered by horses and then by horsepower.
Almost all of the original St. Louis auto builders started building cars as a second or third or fourth career step. These successful companies were started by someone who had a mechanical basis. The companies created by dreamers who didn't have the hands-on knowledge or skills rarely survived, and sometimes didn't even make that first car.
If you include all the no-hitters along with the heavy hitters, St. Louis's 30-plus car builders and suppliers, and there were lots of suppliers, accounted for at least 20% of the city's economy.
The zenith of the independent St. Louis-built automotive manufacturing was, I would say, from about 1905 until around 1928, 1929, right on the cusp of the Great Depression. St. Louis was building for quality, Detroit was building for quantity.
The biggest motor blast in the world is needed to make the million six-cylinder engine
White and the Victor. There was even a budget model, audaciously named the Success. It failed.
Many of these cars were essentially hand-built in the sense they were not built on a Ford-type assembly line. It's another reason that you see such a small number, relatively speaking, produced. I mean, even when you think about the Moon being one of St. Louis's most famous vehicles, you talk about anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 cars a year where Ford would put that on a day.
When you consider back in the day, architects were actually brought in to design many of the cars, they wanted to have.
One of the most unique vehicles on display is this Bobby Darin Dream Car. This is a one-of-a-kind custom car that was designed by Detroit clothing designer Andy Didia in 1953, and it was not completed until 1960. Apparently, Mr. Dia did not care for the design of automobiles in the 1950s, so he got four workers in Detroit, Michigan, and spent over $93,000 taking this car and making it what it looks like today. This car has 30 coats of paint with industrial diamond dust to add sparkle to the car. Bobby Darin, a well-known singer in the 50s and 60s, purchased this car from Mr. Dia, and as a result, it's forever become known as Bobby Darin's dream car. Many people think that Tesla is one of the first electric automobiles that are around, but that's not true. Here's some early models of cars that were powered by batteries just like Teslas are today. Some of these cars date back to the 1980s, even as far back as the 1950s. And there's actually electric powered cars that you can see that date back well early into the 1900s. In 1923, the Stanley Motor Carriage Company came up with another alternative to the internal combustion engine, and that was the external combustion engine, using cars that were powered by steam. A steam boiler generates great quantities of power for later use, unlike an internal combustion engine that must develop the needed power on demand. Kerosene was used to burn fuel, which also then turned and made steam, and the car went. You got about roughly 10 to 12 miles on 1 gallon of water. One of the most iconic cars throughout the history of automobiles is this 1957 Chevy Bel Air convertible. This particular model is an upscale model and very much sought after as a classic car. It is truly an auto icon.
That looks like the blue truck. That looks like a little blue truck. This is cool.
Another iconic car in the collection here is this 1964 Ford Mustang. In 1961, Ford General Manager Lee Iacocca aimed to sell a sports car with 4 seats, had a low weight, and a price tag under $2,500. His vision came to life with the introduction of the Ford Mustang, and it became one of the best-selling sports cars in history.
What we're waiting for now is speed break. Once we're moving,
Another unique car here in this collection is this 1963 Chrysler turbine car. This car was one of only 55 cars that were ever built by the Chrysler Corporation as a turbine car. The body of the car was handmade in Italy and shipped over to the United States. These cars were mainly used as prototypes to see how an engine powered by a turbine could operate on different types of fuels. A turbine engine did require less maintenance and lasted longer than the piston engine, but the car really never took off. The last iconic car we'll see in this collection is this 1965 Chevrolet Corvette. Corvettes were an unusual fiberglass bodied car that was introduced in 1953 as an economical sports car. Many Corvettes were built in the St. Louis area from 1954 to 1981. I hope you've enjoyed this tour, this first tour of the National Museum of Transportation here in St. Louis. Make sure to hit like and subscribe so that you can see the second part of our tour, which will focus on trains and railroad engines. Take care now. Bye.